Excited to have you all join us here today. My name is Sarah Gao, and I am a product designer for the Spotter platform at Sofar Ocean. I work on making the Spotter dashboard and other aspects of our platform easier to use for customers, and I will be your moderator for this session. I'm super excited to showcase the impactful work of our partners at the Atlantic Resiliency Innovation Institute, or ARII for short. But before we dive in, I want to remind folks that if you have any questions for us or questions for the presenters, please type them in the Q&A panel on the side of your Zoom screen. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll be able to answer those. And with that, why don't we go ahead and dive into what we'll be covering for today's webinar. Go to the next slide. So I'll start off with a little bit of an introduction on Sofar Ocean, what we do, and then hand it off to Jeremy, who will talk about the genesis of ARII. Then we'll hear from Josh on how ARII turns data into action. And then finally, we'll pass it to Lara, who will talk about ARII's impact, and then end with that Q&A that I mentioned earlier. All right. And without further ado, why don't we dig into it? Go ahead and hit the next slide, please. So to start off with a little bit of an introduction on Sofar Ocean, we are a San Francisco-based ocean intelligence platform closing the data gap for better predictability and outcomes. So for so long, the ocean has been undersampled and poorly modeled. Historically, to get any data, people have built these big, intricate systems in order to deliver quality data under really harsh ocean conditions. And so this requires big vessels, a lot of specialized crew, kind of bulky and bespoke, and oftentimes very unscalable platforms, all of which make it very expensive to collect this data. Next slide. So here at Sofar Ocean, we have a bit of a different approach composed of these three layers. So the Spotter platform is our hardware foundation for collecting ocean data at scale. Thousands of these buoys are already in the water around the world, deployed both by us and our customers across science, industry, and government. These spotters send millions of real-time observations every day, and our team of oceanographers and meteorologists then assimilate this data to create state-of-the-art models and marine weather forecasts. And kind of at the top of this stack is the intelligence that these layers unlock, where raw data becomes insights for real actionable decisions. So what does that first step of capturing the data actually look like? If you go to the next slide. So this is the Spotter platform itself. It's a turnkey, all-in-one solution for capturing that real-time ocean data, making it simple, affordable, and adaptable to close that data gap. Spotters are simple and easy to deploy. You can deploy this kind of basketball-sized buoy in minutes from any vessel and start streaming data in real time, all in one intuitive dashboard. You don't need any special expertise or training in order to do so. And at 1/10 the cost of traditional buoys, ocean data is more accessible than ever. But what makes Spotter truly unique is its modular platform. The buoy connects via our smart mooring cables to underwater sensors, and they kind of connect like Legos or building blocks. And the system is powered by the Bristlemouth Open Standard, which is kind of like the USB-C for ocean sensors, enabling you to easily add and swap sensors at any time. Next slide. And if we zoom into the Spotter buoy itself, this is the foundation and brains of our platform. So right out of the box, you can measure everything you need to know about surface conditions like waves and sea surface temperature. But that's also just kind of only the beginning. If you go to the next slide. Our smart mooring extends Spotter's data collection capabilities underwater. So we have a whole suite of different sensors that each connects to the smart mooring cable via a Bristlemouth enabled node. So for example, you can add temperature sensors to track thermal stratification, dissolved oxygen in our new salinity sensor to understand water quality. We have hydrophones for acoustic monitoring. And for any other parameter you'd like to monitor, we have our Bristlemouth Dev Kit, which enables you to integrate custom sensors with the Spotter platform. So this modularity really helps you to reuse the same system and deploy a huge variety of configurations so you can build what you need and continue to add on from there. Next slide. And all of this real-time data can be easily accessed via the spotter dashboard that I mentioned earlier. So on an intuitive interface, you can view live data from your spotters in these rich data visualizations to run analyses and make real-time decisions. Next slide. And so we'll hear from the team at ARII today, and just want to highlight them as a great example of one customer who's closing that ocean data gap. And we've seen this as a really successful model with others around the world, such as in the Dominican Republic and in Australia, where over 66 deployed spotters help communities understand coastal conditions. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to our first speaker, Jeremy Devaney, who is the executive director at ARII, and will talk to us about its genesis.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having us today. It's a real pleasure to join you and the Sofar team. We appreciate your partnership on our project. We'll go to the next slide and dive right into things. A bit of our origin story. We started as an idea about 10 or 11 years ago. My co-founder, Lara, and myself were working on the Chamber of Commerce here locally in Marshfield, and we're thinking of economic development opportunities. And Marshfield has a unique coastline that is really an example for the rest of New England. Oftentimes, when there's coastal hazard storms that come through, TV cameras come down here and witness what's going on, but oftentimes science doesn't stay behind. The solutions never come for the community in terms of changing outcomes for those coastal storms. So when Lara and I started thinking about consequences of this and opportunities around this, it made sense to us to have academia and science come to our community as an opportunity for growth. And so when we think about our mission and our vision for the organization, it's really based on trying to drive value to the community and deliver solutions, not just for Marshfield, but for the greater region and how we can expand on that. Marshfield as a community spends about $10 million a year, about 10% of our town's budget on coastal hazards in one way, shape, or form. There's 78 coastal communities under the Coastal Zone Management Authority in Massachusetts. So you're talking about $750 million spent annually on coastal remediation, coastal hazard issues. That's a big number, and without really thinking about things innovatively, we're going to keep spending money and keep getting the results we're already getting. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to create a diverse marketplace of solutions so that when communities like ours are seeking new answers, there's other options for them than what we've tried in true options of the past. Those aren't really working anymore. And so we're going to do this we now stood up a coastal hazard lab run by Josh Humberston, who you're going to hear from later. And we've also stood up the Atlantic Resiliency Coastal Academy, which is a workforce development academy, a certificate program with a 6-month certificate program, followed by a 3-month paid industry internship, largely focused on civil engineering work skills so that we can drive more talent into the field. But we want that talent to be focused on designing, building, maintaining, and innovating around coastal hazards. And what we're doing on the lab side is really going to influence how we're going to address this for our community, the state of Massachusetts, and the broader region. Our idea is a bit of a crawl, walk, run. We agree with you that everything starts with data. And so what our communities learned through past situations, we had a new firm flood map be issued by FEMA back in 2015. And really the community didn't have the data to push back against the government's overreach in the new flood maps. But intuitively, we knew the maps were wrong. And so it took a huge expense and a huge workload to get that data set up and running so that we could have a basis for argument, a basis for discussion. And so our plan here has been that we wanted near coastal real-time data, and that was important to our organization overall. Let's establish ground truth in what's going on along the coast before we go and spend billions and billions of dollars on new solution for that coastline. So the tools that we have through Spotter really enable that. It's a great off-the-shelf option for us that's helped us manage costs and really get into the field quickly to start collecting that data. The second phase of that's really a digital twin. Josh will talk more about that, but we're moving towards a regional simulation environment and a regional consortium where we're going to have a network that expands all of New England from the Maritimes down to Delaware, and that we can step in and help other communities start to assess their problems, democratize the data, bring it to communities that don't really have the resources for themselves, and help them stand up capabilities so that we can move data to decision and move on to implementation and provide a pathway for a future for coastal communities like ours that are at such risk. So we want to bend the curve in the favor of our communities and really help communities understand their problems so that they can start designing for the future. But with that, I'll turn it back to you, Sarah, and let Josh talk more about the actual implementation of the scientific process.
Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, it's fascinating to all the work that you're doing in RA and seeing how it all comes together. Now we'll hear from Dr. Josh Humberston about RE's Coastal Hazards Lab.
Thanks, Sarah and Jeremy, and glad to be here with you all with the podium to talk a little bit about how we're using real-time data to redefine coastal resilience. In our title here, When the Ocean Speaks, Listen in Real Time, a lot of our strategy at the lab is on listening to the ocean, listening to the processes, understanding the physical process, and coming up with a synergistic approach to how to become more resilient, rather than just pushing back against what I consider the sort of insurmountable force of the ocean. We really want to start to work with the physical processes more than against them. Next slide, please. So the Coastal Hazards Lab within ARII, our approach is really to turn coastal resilience research into real-world results. So we kind of want to stand in this little niche between academics, research institutions, which are having great innovation, but a lot of it doesn't reach the everyday person. And we kind of want to enable that to be a quicker, accelerate that process so we can see real-world results. Because as Jeremy said, we're not in a sustainable framework right now. We can't continue to spend this money, which is growing as we face additional challenges from the environment. So the ways that we go after this is through partnership. We work with academic institutions like Northeastern University, URI, University of New Hampshire, practice it, put buoys in the water, collect data, distribute that to everyone who needs it in a meaningful way. And finally, by proof, by setting up coastal test beds in a consortium where people can put innovative solutions into the water and test them in a real world situation. Next slide, please. So this is actually the deployment of one of the spotter buoys with our partners in Plymouth, Massachusetts, who now use that data in real time through their harbor masters and more. Good example of slightly rough seas here. This is actually a nuclear power plant out of commission behind us. But all of the buoys that we've put in, we actually worked with partners to insert them in the water. And that's valuable because while this is a scientific tool, our ability to partners with others on that front is really valuable. Our other approach here has been coupling physical and digital infrastructure from the beginning. What we have seen a lot is that some people will stick buoys in the water, which has a lot of value, but if it doesn't get to the end user in a meaningful way, you're really sort of getting diminishing returns on the investment in that data collection. And on the other side, digital infrastructure is crucially helpful to partner with that in situ sensors, having lab space where people can come visit, understand the technology, see data in real time. This helps people understand how they can use this real-time information to make the decisions that they're facing with every day. Next slide, please. So we have been spending the last year starting to set up what I call our smarter sensor network. What is really valuable about this is it is scientific based in terms of where we deploy buoys. In yellow here, these little wave icons are our spotter buoys all along the coast of Massachusetts, streaming real-time data. We're also adding NOAA water level sensors, radar sensors from the Army Corps of Engineers, and more that are specific to the individual use cases and risk that different communities face. So we've taken an approach to working with the local communities and then deploying a sensor network that delivers the information that they need specifically. Next slide, please. Part of this is the real-time information for the public good. I love data, I love spreadsheets, but I'm probably in the minority there. And so part of what we've done is setting up dashboards that are really targeted towards the specific user bases. They can click through the different spotters that we have along the coast of Massachusetts, look at comparisons in wind velocity, significant wave height, other parameters, even pulling in real-time weather data into that, and even generating summaries of that data from different user perspectives, from mariners to emergency response and homeowners. What matters to them? Is it coastal erosion? Is it getting someone out to a closed road in time? This is really using, sort of leveraging the modern LLM framework to say, what does this data mean? And what does it mean for you as a unique user? One of the things we've seen here that is interesting is we tend to see one forecast for the entire coast of Massachusetts, and that's what people have to act on. By deploying this network of spotter buoys, we've already seen that waves will be 3 times the height in one location that they are in another. That provides a new insight for decision making, where you know when winds are coming from a certain direction and waves are coming from a certain direction, you have a higher risk than the town 20 miles south of you, and you might begin to act differently. Next slide, please. And as Jeremy said, the next step of what we're working on is a digital sandbox for resiliency. And so what does that mean? It's a hydrodynamic numerical model using open source code that we've built using a flexible mesh grid around the New England region. The whole goal, though, is to get beyond one-off models or hindcasts and rather make this operational, running on high-performance computing clusters, so it's running the current conditions every single week. And what's really valuable about this is we're working with partners so that this becomes accessible to others. And so if they're inserting a jetty, a groin, oyster reef, they can start to put that into the model and understand what the effects are 1 month down the road, 2 years down the road, and actually make a smarter decision and potentially save millions or tens of millions of dollars compared to doing it wrong, which we have seen because you only can make decisions based on the best information you have. So we say, try it 1,000,000 times in digital space first, then go do it in reality. Next slide, please. And finally, we're really focused on building better together within the New England region and even beyond. We've spent a lot of time setting up ARII Coastal Ocean Testbed, ACOTS, and are working on a testbed consortium throughout the region. What this really begins to enable is people to get things in the water. Turns out that one of the biggest barriers to innovation is the ability to get things in the water out of the lab. We have a lot of expertise working on boats, getting in the water, having moorings, cameras, and auxiliary sensor network, so that when you put in a renewable energy buoy or an autonomous vehicle underwater, it gains so much more value by going to one of these test sites that you can learn more and move faster. And so we're very much open to working with others on this effort. Next slide, please. So who uses it and how? Something I think is critical is that most people don't want data. They want information they can act on. So we need to aggregate all this information into reports, summaries, figures that people can interpret at a glance. What does it mean? What trends do I see? When do I need to worry about it? We've seen unintended use cases of our data, which we love, going from swimmers to first responders, aquaculturists, researchers, and more. AI is really playing a big part in what we do and delivering that information in a way that meets user mission requirements. Next slide, please. So I'm going to wrap up my section by saying, I implore you, if you're considering getting sensors in the water, collecting data, then now is the time for action. Throughout my career, I've been seeing that the resilient communities are the ones that understand their risks today and adapt mitigation strategies that align with natural processes. This means understanding what is happening and not trying to push back against the ocean in an unknown way. If you want to know how to do this, how to get buoys in the water, how to stream data, how to get AI insights, we're here to help through our partnership network. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to you first, Sarah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Josh. Super cool to hear about all the amazing work happening at the Coastal Hazards Lab. And on that note about getting involved, I'd love to hand it off to Lara Brait, who is the Director of Partnerships at ARII, to talk about the impact of their work.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, so much. It's so exciting to be here today. And thanks to Josh and Jeremy, our awesome team that we have put together here. You can move on to the next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. So, you've heard a lot from Josh and Jeremy, and one of the things that we're most excited about at ARII is our focus on the workforce development. And Jeremy talked a little bit about our Coastal Academy. but I'd like to dive a little bit further in to explain to you what exactly we have going on over here. So essentially what we're doing is we're handing over, a skilled, trained workforce that are ready to strengthen our coastal communities through the 6-month academic cohort, which is a mix of classroom instruction and hands-on training. And then we have the 3-month internship that I will talk about in a few minutes. But the most exciting thing is that our curriculum was really developed in partnership with our industry partners and also our academic partners. So what we did is we sat around the table and we said to these industry partners, we said, what type of skills would you like your workers to have when they come to you for an entry-level position? And it was a really interesting exercise in, what employers are really looking for. Sometimes when people come straight out of college, they don't necessarily have the skills that the employers are looking for. And we're really honing in on what these skills are. And it's not just, blue economy. Although ARII is focused on that, we sat with construction companies and engineering. We all know that there's a bunch of different types of engineering companies. So these students are really going to be very well versed in different aspects of engineering, different aspects of construction, emergency management. Our curriculum, excuse me, I can never say that word, is right online. So you can take a look at it and see. And I would love to hear from some of the, companies that are on this call today to tell us what you're looking for in your employees, because this is something that's fluid, right? We're starting with our brand new academic, cohort here with the academy, but we're always looking for new information and staying up with the trends and the times to, what's really needed to solve these problems along our coastline. One of the other very exciting things is that we worked with Northeastern University. So they're actually providing our students with badges that are stackable credentials that can be used towards a bachelor's degree. So whether someone has gone to school or not gone to school, there is opportunity there for people. And sorry, I have to look at my notes here because I don't want to forget anything. But one of the big pieces is the economic data as well that we used when we were developing ARII. In Massachusetts alone, there were 600 plus job openings in engineering at the time when Jeremy and I started ARII. And what that meant to us is that they really, there was a need for workers, and we wanted to help fill that gap, especially along the South Shore where we live here. So if anybody is, like, Josh said, if anybody is looking to do something like this, I encourage you to, look at the economics of your community and look at what the workforce needs are. And I guarantee you, if you're in a coastal community, it's going to somehow come back to coastal engineering and the blue economy. So as far as our partnerships and community partnerships, I know they were mentioned a few other times here, but we see municipalities a lot, emergency management professionals, universities, and also community colleges. K-12 schools have been really, really interested in what we're doing, especially on the lab side for STEM opportunities and getting younger students involved in STEM earlier. There's an engineering school in the town that we live in, an engineering program, excuse me, and we're just starting to filter in some information to them. And we're also doing a hands-on curriculum that we can give to those younger students so we can get them really excited about this with some hands-on learning experiences. As far as the internship program, again, that I did touch on that earlier, but that is really what we're looking for your help with. And we would love to hear from you if you're interested in taking one of our interns and what you're looking for from a worker that would come from ARII's Coastal Academy. What's next for ARII? Well, we have a lot going on and we've accomplished a lot in a very short period of time. We have a very dynamic team here that I'm very, very proud of. And we're planning on expanding, and we want to partner with you and your friends, people that you know that aren't on this call. I know that there's some people on here that will be sharing this later, and we encourage you to do so. If things that we have said on this call resonate with you, and you live in a community that you think could benefit from a partnership with us, we would absolutely love to hear from you. As Josh said, we're going to be going up and down the Northeast to start, and then our plans are to expand up and down the Eastern Seaboard. So we would love to see other coastal academies up and down the coastal Atlantic Seaboard, and we would also love to see maybe some other labs here and there. And how to engage with us. I know that Sarah said that she was going to be able to send this out to our team, but we at atlanticrii.org online. We have Instagram, Facebook. We are here. Our emails are available. Our phone numbers are available, and we would love to hear from you.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Lara, for letting us know how folks can get involved, all the amazing partnerships you're working on. And thank you to all of our speakers today for sharing with us on how ARII is building out that coastal resilience. And we're so excited to see how these projects grow and expand. And with that, we will now take some questions for our panelists. Let me open the Q&A here. All right. I think this first question might be for Jeremy. How has the democratization of data access changed communities and municipalities' response rates?
Terrific. That's such an important question, and it was really foundational for us, Sarah. Back in 2015, the town of Marshfield went through an experience where FEMA updated our firm flood maps, and intuitively, a lot of our community knew they were incorrect, but we didn't have anything but anecdotal data, and so we really had to stand up that effort from scratch. It was really expensive. It was really time sensitive. And ultimately, we were able to win that discussion. Win is an odd word for it, but we were able to move that discussion forward productively. The town was able to peel back some of the firm flood maps and execute LOMAs and different strategies to help people escape from the flood map and the flood insurance that they were intuitively aware they didn't need. So that example really highlights, though, that when people come in and legislate or set frameworks for use of your property, and you don't have any other argument but the data that they're providing you, it makes it really difficult to start from zero. And so we want communities to be able to have the data at their fingertips so that when they go to make these really important, costly decisions, they're making them accurately and they're spending their money wisely. It's really, really, really expensive, and the coastal hazard solutions are monolithic. We're talking seawalls or coastal marsh restructuring, right? That takes a long time and a lot of effort, and you might only get one opportunity at it as a community every few years to be able to do something. You want to make sure that tax dollar is spent right. You want to make sure the decision has the impact you expect it to. So being able to allow communities that don't have those resources at their fingertips to gain access to that helps them with grant writing. It helps them understand their problem. It helps them sit back and really have better conversations about what's really happening.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just having that as the backbone for everything else that you're able to do and those decisions and actions you can make from there.
100%.
Thank you so much. And as a reminder to our attendees to the webinar, if you have a question for any of our panelists, please feel free to submit that via the Q&A on the Zoom. This next question, I think maybe for Josh, with your work translating data into an accessible tool for community use, what was the community response to your projects, and who were the first adopters, and did you see any kind of local champions supporting this work?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, we were able to deploy all of these buoys in partnership with local stakeholders. And these range from yacht clubs and marinas to harbor masters and more. And in all cases, they said, wait, can I see this data? They thought we were just doing this as an academic exercise. And when they realized they could go online and see this data every day before they went out in the water, they were really excited. And in one of my favorite cases, one of our buoys became disconnected from its mooring, and it took us about a week to put it out. And we actually heard from a guy who goes swimming in the ocean every day, and he said, "When is it coming back? I don't know what the water temperature is, what wetsuit to use." So it was really exciting seeing these different use cases. And for resilience specifically, we showed CZM, the Coastal Zone Management in Massachusetts, our dashboard that shows all these buoys together along the coastline. And they said, "Oh, can you send me that link?" Because they also didn't know it was available. So we've been slowly rolling this out. It is a bit of a marketing effort to make sure people are aware of it, but we know everyone's kind of been saving this dashboard to their favorites now, because it's really easy, whether you're going to go out on a boat to the beach or you're actually doing science on this data, to be able to see it there all the time.
That's amazing. I love being favorited and bookmarked.
Sarah, I would add to what Josh
Please.
said. It's really interesting. We went from an environment where Massachusetts really only had two NOAA buoys in Cape Cod Bay and off of Boston, Gulf of Maine, unless you go further north. Those buoys tend to be about 20-25 miles offshore. We now have an entire interconnected network that runs from Newburyport all the way down to Sandwich. In all of eastern Massachusetts now has water temperature and localized wave data and wind data. That's when we talk democratization, that's revolutionary. You can't make forecasts off something that's 25 miles offshore and expect accuracy.
Yeah, definitely. This next question sounds like it would be for Lara. How did you navigate securing grant money and partnering with local agencies to support this initiative?
Sure. So, as Jeremy mentioned in the beginning, this was stood up by a Chamber of Commerce initiative. And I am actually also the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce in our community. And that's how Jeremy and I, started to work together. And it's really all about relationship building. We were very active in the business community, very active in all the municipalities with our planning departments. And we really took time to understand what our communities needed. And that really enabled us to be great advocates for what was really needed. So initially getting that grant money, that was relationships with our state and federal government agencies. And we're lucky enough to be in those circles and have relationships with those people because of other great work that we've partnered on and done in the community. But that initial investment was really relationship based. And I think one other thing that I would want to mention is that although we're talking very technical and we're talking about a lot of science, when we're talking about this as a team, I always like to bring it back to saying that we're talking about people, and we're talking about ensuring sustainability and creating healthy communities all across the world, really, because that's really all any of us want. So my number one answer for that would be relationship building. That's really how we were able to come across these grants.
Awesome. I think that's a great segue into this next question here. And I think Lara or maybe Josh or even Jeremy, if you want to jump in there, of course. But how did you communicate this very technical and scientific data in a way that resonated with policymakers?
So I guess I can start off by saying again that having a diverse team was really, part of it here. Clearly, as you can tell from the three of us, we're all very different. We all have different strengths, and in recognizing that you're bringing in different people that are able to explain different aspects of what you're doing, I think is very important in any environment or any business that you're working in.
Yeah, and I'll add on to there that I see that as such a strength at ARII. I spent the last decade in very technical, deep academic work. And so as we kicked off this and distributed data products, I would ask Jeremy and Lara, like, what do you think? How does it feel? And, Lara would say, well, Josh, I'm not a scientist. And I said, that's perfect because I am, and I need to hear from you, what this data means to you from your perspective. And so she was even out on her boat one time and said, Josh, the buoy said it was going to be glassy, and it's definitely not glassy. There's 3-foot waves out here. And I got into, the technical perspective about like what a glassy surface is versus having waves and all this, and kind of just learned that like, I need to go and talk to the stakeholders, hear how they're interpreting this data, what it means, and then cater our products to communicate to them effectively. Because just trying to dig up my way in on the technical side is not the only way to, make impact here. The people who are making decisions need, like I said before, information, not raw data. So it needs to make sense for them in the language that they're used to. So having that diversity and interacting with our partners and understanding what they want to see and how they want to see it has a ton of value.
And to add on to what Lara and Josh provided, part of it comes back to how engaged with the community we were before we even launched this effort. We were aware of the planning hurdles of our community. We were aware of the financial hurdles of our community. Massachusetts, we're governed by Prop 2.5, which means our town budget only can go up 2.5% every year unless we have a bond referendum. So if you're going to consider huge projects, it's a huge issue for our communities. And our communities are governed by town meeting. So everything has to go in front of a group of, 500 angry citizens and get voted on. So when you show up and you don't have information, you don't have ground truth, you haven't established any baseline, people will fire arrows at you, and you've got to be prepared to duck and cover. But the reality for our community is, and many like us up and down the eastern seaboard and out on the West Coast, is that a large portion of our economic value of our community is within a mile of the coastline, is subject to some sort of coastal hazard. And so when you start looking at like the future of a town like Marshfield or Gloucester or Sandwich or Plymouth or New Bedford, all those towns that have existed for 400 years are at risk of not being able to be insured anymore, are at risk of not being able to be rebuilt anymore, are at risk of being legislated away because people are going to make decisions and communities aren't going to have any basis for discussion. So we need to figure out solutions to protect that economic value. And we certainly need to find solutions to really start dealing with that framework. Massachusetts just rolled out the Resilient Coast Plan. It's going to provide a framework for strategies. Deanna Moran did a fantastic job rolling that out as the head of resiliency for CZM. But we're still searching for ground truth even as these processes launch. So it's really important that like Josh's work continues, that we can continue to build out the consortium so we feed more data in and can make smarter decisions across the board.
Great. Thank you all for your answers. Another question for Lara, perhaps. How do you see your regional approach in Marshfield scaling to the rest of the Atlantic coastline and beyond?
Great question. Similar answer to last time. We are talking to everyone and anyone that will listen. And that's part of my answer from last time too. I think it's important to note that Jeremy and I think had talked about this for 5 or 7 years before ARII actually came to life. And, at first there were, people that, told us we were crazy, and we just, you just got to keep on going if you're, if you believe in something. We are already, doing that. And, it's really in proof of concept, like Jeremy had said. We have created this spotter network in Massachusetts, and the data doesn't lie. So we're able to point to the data that we have, and it's exciting as every day that goes by that we have more and more. I hate to say that we're hoping for a storm, But we really do want to see, you know, some weather events, so we can get some good data in there. And then we're able to show them, you know, to show other people that this is, you know, this is really important information, and this is, you know, what we could do, you know, as far as solutions for your, you know, your community. So that's part of what we're working on, is looking at different communities, you know, standalone and, you know, as, you know, county-wide, I guess I would say, and really showing them, you know, what the solutions are for their community. So I think that it's a proof of concept, what we've already done, using the data and just getting in front of anybody and, you know, everyone that will listen to what we have to say.
Sarah, as we're moving from here, then some of the next steps for us are to continue building out the consortium. We've had great conversations with a lot of communities throughout Massachusetts about developing sensor networks that are either embedded in our smart network or are outside of that smart network, but adopt a similar architecture so we can share data. You know, that's an important piece as we scale this, that we have interoperability between all of these different sensors that are going in the water so that Josh and the team can continue building on the great work that they're doing. The more that we have out there and the more data we have collecting, we get better results in the models. The other piece of that is we're also using these models to validate other models. So there's a lot of people that are running coastal hazard models and they're trying to make assessments of what's actively going on the coastline, but they don't actively have sensors in the water to validate those models. And so there's a huge gap between what reality says and what those models say. Lastly, I would point out that, you know, we've had a ton of conversations with academic institutions and other organizations, whether it's port authorities. There's a lot of efforts that are going on right now. We are happy to sit in on test and evaluation phase, design work phase for helping you understand what your network needs are on the data side. But we've also become really expert on data delivery to decision makers. So if you're sitting there and you're a town board member and you're saying to yourself, man, I wish I had a dashboard, or I wish I had an alerting system for my emergency management team, like those are conversations we should be having. Those are very real services that we can help you deliver to your community.
Yeah, I'll just emphasize that you don't have to do this in a silo. As we grow, our goal is to be here to help others. You don't have to build the infrastructure from scratch. You don't have to learn how to do deployments from scratch. We have playbooks, we've done it, we have data infrastructure, coastal scientists and engineers on staff, and we're definitely here to help you. It's part of our mission as a nonprofit.
Amazing. And with the few minutes we have left, why don't we do a little round robin? If each person could share, what is one piece of advice you'd give to somebody that wants to start a similar program in their area and get started?
I can kick off, I guess. My advice would be, you know, largely what Lara said, is get a diverse team from the get-go. Bring in scientists, bring in policymakers, bring in local leaders and champions, and start that conversation. It's sometimes uncomfortable to talk out of our lanes, but it's really how you deliver the most impactful solutions.
He stole my answer.
That's why I jumped in first, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, and, you know, being in places that you wouldn't expect yourself. I can say that this whole science side, blue economy, you know, thing, it was new for me. And I, you know, a couple times I had gone into certain groups and certain roundtables and stuff. And I mean, as you know, I have a professional, you know, background, and I, you know, own businesses and stuff, but I was in an uncomfortable position where I, at some points, didn't really know, you know, if I could add value there, or, you know, and wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to keep up with the lingo. But it's a diverse team, and, you know, I myself sit on our school committee in the town that we live in. So I'm an elected official here, and in having the school department, if you can get, you know, education behind you and what you're doing and show the importance of value to not only parents but caregivers and you know, policymakers in your community, I really think that that's something that you really want to have the education aspect on your side.
Yeah, there are two important things there. One is staying authentic, right? We knew what our mission was right away. It really resonated with us because it's important to our survival as a community. And both Lara and I grew up in this town, and so it's not just our community though; it's the whole region. We just happen to be a great example to study it. So, you know, there's lots of other places that look like us that are scratching their heads, going, "What do I do next?" The other piece that I'd say is don't reinvent the wheel. We stood there, and Lara said it really well. We stood there a lot of times knowing we were not the smartest people in the room, but we knew that there's got to be a better way to deal with this problem. You know, intuitively and looking around, we knew there was different anecdotal evidence of what was going on, but we needed to like capture this scientifically. And so, you know, finding somebody that was as open-minded as Josh and like really understood the problem and came from a background that had some of those hard skills that Lara and I didn't have made a huge difference when we went to, you know, start having conversations. It does not get lost on me for a moment that Josh's immense scientific talent lends a lot of credibility to our mission, but he's done a fantastic job of standing up just like such an incredible asset for the region and the community in, you know, 11 months. And what more can we do with more leverage and more partners and you know, more funding goes without saying, but there's a lot of possibility at our fingertips, and we're excited to partner with Sofar as we move forward.
Amazing. Well, I believe we are a little bit past time, so thank you so much to our attendees for sticking in there, and thank you so much to our amazing panelists for sharing all of your amazing insight and stories today. Really appreciate you. And want to remind folks that all registrants will receive a follow-up email with a link to this recording. Be sure to share with your friends, as Lara mentioned, and contact info for our panelists so you can find out how to get in touch with ARII. Thank you again, everybody, for attending, and
Thank you.
hope you have a fantastic day.
Thanks,
Have a great
Sarah.
day.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.